All right, so we are recording this session. We want to welcome everybody as you're logging in. Good evening. My name is Dr. Matt Hill. I'm the superintendent of the Burbank schools, and we're excited to have you all here. We want to make sure we share information about the safety protocols that we put in place here at Burbank Unified School District. Before we begin, I want to introduce our translators for this evening. First, we have Nuria Lemberg, our Spanish interpreter. Nuria, can you introduce yourself, please?
Buenas noches a todos, yo soy Nuria Lundberg, voy a ser su intérprete de español esta noche. Quiero decirles algunas cosas para poder acceder al canal donde yo voy a estar. En la parte inferior derecha de su pantalla van a encontrar un mundo color gris y ahí simplemente indican el idioma de su preferencia. Esto es es un formato de webinar, entonces se les sugiere que pongan sus preguntas en el Q, donde dice Q y A, y ahí en la medida de lo posible van a intentar contestarles cada una de ellas, y si no, pues obviamente más adelante lo van a hacer. Y bueno, espero que les guste mi interpretación esta noche, y pues muchas gracias. Ahora les voy a presentar a nuestra intérprete de armenio, Ana Arsumanian. Thank you very much.
Բարի երեկո, ես Անա Արզումանյանն եմ, Burbank-ի դպրոցների շրջանի հայոց լեզվի թարգմանիչը։ Եթե ցանկանում եք այսօրվա մեր ներկայացումը լսել հայոց լեզվով, իմ խոսքից հետո կտեսնեք էկրանների վրա փոքրիկ գլոբուսի նշանը, կարող եք այն սեղմել եւ ընտրել հայոց լեզու եւ այս ամենը կլսեք հայոց լեզվով։ Ինչպես նաեւ եթե հարցեր ունեք, կարող եք գրել Q&A բաժնում Եվ այդ հարցերին կաշխատենք այսօր պատասխանել, կարող եք նաև այն հայոց լեզվով գրել, ես այն կթարգմանեմ ձեր համար, եւ եթե իմ սենյակում եք լինելու, լսելու եք իմ թարգմանությունը, խնդրում եմ այդ Q&A մեջ գրեք, որ դուք ինձ լսում եք եւ այդտեղ եք։ Շնորհակալություն, բարի բայերուն։ Back to you, Dr. Hill.
Thank you, Nuria and Ana. So everyone will be able to join the channel for Spanish or Armenian translation, as you just heard. You see the globe button at the bottom right, interpretation. We have an amazing panel this evening. We wanted to make sure that we were able to highlight our partners that work with us to keep our schools safe. I'm going to have each organization, each individual to be able to introduce themselves. First of all, I want to thank the PTA and Charlene Walters and Wendy Harville and Lori Little for helping plan this event this evening. Thank you for being here. If you don't mind, Charlene, giving a brief introduction. And for our translators, I just want to remind myself and the others, make sure we're speaking slowly this evening. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Charlene Walters, and I'm the Vice President of Leadership for Burbank Council Parent-Teacher Association this year. For more than 125 years, the Parent-Teacher Association has worked toward bettering the lives of every child in education, health, and safety. Burbank Council, PTA, is proud to partner with Burbank Unified School District, Burbank Police Department, and Family Service Agency on this very important webinar. So many of our parents, students, teachers, and community members are concerned about the safety of our students and schools. And we thank all of these organizations for coming together tonight and involving us and for us to be a part of it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Charlene. Next, we have Taylor Foxhall from Burbank Family Service Agency.
Thanks, Matt. Hello, my name is Taylor Foxhall, like Matt said, from Family Service Agency of Burbank. I'm the Director of Youth Programs here, been here for about 7 years now, and have been very fortunate to be able to work with hundreds of students within the district and look forward to being here tonight, giving some information. So thank you so much.
Next, we have some of our partners from the Burbank Police Department. I'll start with Adam Cornelius.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Adam Cornelius. I'm the captain for the patrol division at the Burbank Police Department. So we cover everybody who's driving a black and white wearing a uniform. We are the 24/7 side of the operation.
Thank you, Adam. Next, we have our SROs, Dustin Kiyumi.
Good evening. I'm Detective Dustin Rodriguez. I was an SRO for the last few years. And so this is SRO Yummy.
Hello, my name is Officer Roberts. I was assigned to patrol for 10 years, but I recently became a school resource officer. So I've been here for approximately 1 month now.
So she's still in the training process. She's great. We're both parents, and so we bring a lot of that experience into our job. So.
Thank you. And I also want to introduce our Director of Student Services, Stacy Cashman.
Good evening. I'm very happy to be here. I'm coming up on my 30th year working at Burbank Unified, and I've worked in partnership with the police officer pretty much all of my administrative career. And I also work with the schools on safety and discipline and lots of other things, PBIS. So you'll be hearing about some of our prevention and planning to make sure our students and staff are as safe as we can possibly make our schools. So thank you.
And I also want to give a big thank you to Lauren Dieter. Behind the scenes, she's been organizing this webinar and coordinating all of this event for us and does a lot for our Student Services Division. So thank you, Lauren. But thank you all for being here tonight. Tonight, what we want to do is provide some additional information about how we keep our students and our staff safe here at Burbank Unified School District. As you heard from the brief introduction, we have amazing partnerships here in Burbank through mental health resources, our PTA, as well as our Burbank Police Department. We always want to make sure that we're working hand in hand, and that's what makes Burbank really unique, is that everyone's just a text message, a phone call away, and we constantly are collaborating behind the scenes to make sure that our schools are safe. Tonight, we're going to talk about our three-prong approach to keeping schools safe. The first area that we're dive into is really around prevention. And the best way that research shows, as well as practices show, is to make sure that every student, every adult on campus has that connection. So we're making sure that we're doing that outreach so that we know every student by name. We get to know their personal stories, their identities, their struggles, their frustrations, and how we can support them. So in a minute, Stacy's going to talk about some of the work that we've been doing from the school district side. And then Taylor's going to talk about what we've been doing for Burbank Family Services. We have an amazing partnership over many decades that we continue to grow and deepen to meet the needs of our students and our staff. The second area that we're talking about is really about proactive planning. This talks about how to make sure that we have clear protocols in place in our schools, the training, the professional development, the partnership with Burbank Police Department, as well as continue to have a review of our school safety plans, our school safety committees, as well as looking at our infrastructure. How do we put in additional safeguards for our students and staff? So we'll talk about that, their second component of this evening. And then the third and final component is making sure that we're proactive in planning for if we need to respond for an incident. And so we're going to be able to talk about if there was a tragic incident, this is how we will respond. And Adam Cornelius is going to talk about Burbank Police Department, how they work with us to make sure that we are ready for the worst case scenario. Hopefully we'll never see that, but we want to make sure we are ready if we do encounter that type of scenario. And at the end, we received about 6 questions in advance that if we don't highlight through the presentations, we'll make sure that we highlight that during our discussion. Please use the Q&A function you see at the bottom of your screen if you want to submit us questions throughout the presentations so that we can have more of a Q&A dialogue at the end. With that, I'd like to hand it over to Stacy. Stacy, if you can give an overview of some of the work we've been doing with our positive behavior intervention support. You hear about PBIS, intervention specialists, gun safety, some of the preventive measures that we're putting in place in our schools.
Yeah, thanks. We've had PBIS stands for Positive Behavior Intervention and Support, and it's a district-wide, actually like statewide program. And at the heart of it is building trust and relationships with our students, because all of us who work in education and our parents know that if you build a strong relationship with your students and they feel that they can confide in trusted adults and they feel engaged with the school community, that they're going to tell us when there are concerns. And our goal is to have students report things at an early level before they escalate into bigger issues. And so PBIS is, we've had 2 trainings already this year. We're having a 3rd one in a month. We've looked at trauma-informed work. We've looked at how to work with students with some severe behavior issues and how to support them. Sorry, ladies, I'm going too fast. I'll slow down. And so PBIS is really about connecting with students and how we approach students and how we support them. One example at Burroughs High School is they have a great club called Link Crew. And that is an example of PBIS in action where students, freshmen, are mentored and helped with their transition to high school. At the elementary level, you'll see PBIS in the form of maybe tickets for positive behavior or 2nd step lessons about character and problem solving and peaceful playgrounds. So PBIS is kind of the structure and the mindset behind a lot of our character building programs on our school sites. And it helps to build the relationship between adults and students. Another thing is we have these great intervention specialists at all of our sites. And that position is really about supporting students' social and emotional needs, as well as making sure they're engaged in school. And so those intervention specialists are teaching lessons, they're helping students with social skills, they're helping students if they're struggling with starting to show some mental health concerns, and they're getting them support along with our counselors and administrators and teachers. So that's just another example of how we support our students. And then one of the things that and Dustin and Kumi will be talking about it later, but we've really developed a comprehensive threat assessment protocol and training program. And the level 1 training that we're doing with all district staff, anyone who works on a school campus, the district office as well, whether you're an office manager, custodian, or teacher, we're training our staff on looking for concerning behaviors. So our teachers and staff have always been great about noticing changes in behavior in our students and quickly getting them support they need. And sometimes a student's had a bad day because they forgot their lunch. And so we make sure they get their lunch that day. Sometimes a student's struggling with depression. And so we make sure we refer them to counseling through FSA or get them the support they need. So the behavior changes, observe, listen, report is a lot of our level 1 training that we're doing right now. And Dustin and Kumi will be explaining the other levels, but those are just some of the things we're doing across the district to support safety, to support a safe school climate, and to try to really create a safe learning environment. I will be honest, the pandemic really stalled some of our efforts, and we're trying to catch up now with trainings. And also our students and staff and adults have all been impacted through that pandemic. And so we've seen some behaviors and challenges socially that we're trying to support students and staff so we can move forward. I will say I've been on sites a lot this year, almost daily. I know Matt and other district staff have as well. And we're seeing just really wonderful learning environments at our schools. Not perfection. We still have people and students who make poor choices, but there's just a really great atmosphere climate at our schools this year, and it's been really wonderful to see. So, and as far as gun safety, we're going to be sending more information out. We're working with a parent who's very passionate about this topic, and we'll be sending a lot of information out for parents and students. But the bottom line is guns need to be safely stored and secured. And parents and adults can be criminally liable if they don't secure their guns, because we don't want kids having access and anyone getting hurt. So it's really important that our adults are very careful about that and not making assumptions, and making sure that those, if they do have weapons, that they're stored safely. And then I think we're passing it over to Taylor to talk about some of the mental health supports and social emotional supports.
All right.
Thank you, Stacy. Yeah, go ahead, Taylor.
All right, thanks. So I'll give, for the audience that maybe don't know about FSA or anything, I'll give kind of a brief overview of, what we do from the agency to how we extend into other places in the community. So for those of you who don't know, FSA has been around for about 69 years now, which is quite a long time. Like I said earlier, I've been here about 7 years and have gotten to work with so many students, which is just the best part of every day. But so we have our agency here. The agency does provide individual services, couples services, and also family therapy from ages, and that includes being able to serve people ages 5 and up to any age. We have our LA County Probation Department approved programs, which include a 26-week anger management program, a 52-week batterers intervention program, and also a 52-week child abuse treatment program. So we have those. We also provide various levels of parent support and intervention and therapeutically supervised, like monitored visits. So we do have that program. We also have a comprehensive intervention, education and treatment program for victims of domestic abuse and their children. Those services are all free of charge for those who are in that program. We provide long-term transitional housing for emancipated youth and young adults from ages 14 to 24, victim of domestic abuse, like I just mentioned, and even homeless families. We also here at the agency have some art and sound therapies that we can provide. But that, moving on to what we do in the schools, by extension of the agency, we've been part of the district for 23 years now. Our largest program is our school-based mental health program, which is a 3-way partnership. It's between the city, FSA, and the school district. Like I said, it was founded about 23 years ago. We're on all 19 campuses. We also serve Burbank Adult School. And those services for those within those programs is also free of charge. And we also provide mental health for many students that are part of special ed. So those who have their individual educational plans have a social emotional goal or a counseling goal. We do provide services and to help reach those goals in those IEPs. We have a team of therapists for that program. And that's been we've had that for about 6 years. And one of our other more recent programs is our care center programs, which were on the 2 traditional high school campuses on Burbank and Burroughs. That's kind of where I started and still am as a main part of what I oversee. These care centers provide situational support for students. They're open 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Monday through Friday. Students are able to walk in and have open door access to mental health. We have therapists stationed at each school, different therapists each and every single day. So that, for some students, they're kind of dipping their toe into the mental health world and kind of checking it out and seeing what it's like to talk about things and to express themselves. For others, it's just an additive support for maybe what they already have. And for other students, it's their access to something, anything and anything. And we've been doing that for about 7 years, first at Burbank, and then the following year we opened up at Burroughs. And that welcomes about an average of probably between the two, probably about 100 to 120 students a day. And upwards to about 12,000 contacts through the year, 12,000 different visits with students during a school year. it's our more kind of cutting edge program, letting students walk on down in the middle of a school day to come talk to someone. But it is, access to resources in any capacity. If we're talking about prevention, access to mental health resources is so very important, so that students can have that support. And I like to think of prevention as something that it's almost unseen. It never gets to the point where it needs to be an emergency response, or it needs to get to some type of emergency prevention. It's prevented initially, whether that is students struggling with depression or suicidality or anything like that. So that's what we're doing each and every single day on the campuses, from the little ones to the older ones. And there's also, I almost forgot to mention, there's also a phone number attached to the care centers that students have access to. It's posted on the high school campuses and even on the alternative campuses like Monterey and CDS. This number goes directly to me. It is, they can contact anytime. I will answer it as long as I am not sleeping. As long as if I'm awake, a student can text or call. We've gotten the calls at 11, 12, 1 in the morning, just to supporting whatever it is. So again, and Matt, you would say, wanting to be able to know these kids and help with them. So that's what we're doing every day. That's what we've been doing through this partnership this whole time.
Great. Thank you, Taylor. I'm going to go ahead and before we go to the second part of our planning process for safety, I want to highlight some questions around this topic that we see in the Q&A. And just a reminder for everyone, if you have questions throughout, put them in the Q&A. We'll try to answer them at the break of each segment, or if we don't answer them all this evening, we'll make sure we follow up with emails afterwards. But one of the questions in the chat was about who pays for FSA. So we're fortunate here in Burbank. We have had a long-term partnership with FSA, the city of Burbank, and the school district. So all three organizations have been able to contribute through fundraising and investments for the school-based counseling. And so on the Burbank Unified School District side, we get local control funding formula. There's a designated pot of funding called supplemental funding. We use that for school-based counseling. And then we've grown that for the 2 care centers that Taylor talked about, which are on each of our comprehensive high schools at Burroughs as well as Burbank High School. That's also paid for out of the school-based, the supplemental funding. The other 2 questions, and it kind of touches on the theme that we're just talking about, and Taylor kind of alluded it to as well. Sandy Hook Promise Foundation focuses on 2 modules. The first one is Say Hello. And that's what I talked about at the start of this conversation of making sure that we're saying hello to every adult and student on campus. Just that first introduction and then getting to know them. And then the second is See Something, Say Something. And that way we can have the right resources to be able to support. Maybe it's connecting with an adult through our teachers, our counselors, our admin, our intervention specialist, our family service agency, mental health resources. That's the next level. And so one of the questions was that a parent indicated that their child said that they see these micro things happening on campus, but they don't see the consequences that happen to the student that's creating these behavioral problems. And I know that can be frustrating for students or adults and parents because we don't always see what's happening to that child. Well, we keep that confidential. But what we do is intervene with that child. And Stacy talked about tiers. So there's tier 1 that we're making sure we have that connection support for every child. But tier 2 and tier 3, we go into more deliberate and intentional support with that child. And that's the PBIS framework that we use. So when a child that has repeated behavior, we do work with that child. So it may be bringing the parents in and we do some restorative practices, teach them. Another question came up with their 3rd grader got cursed at and hit. What are we doing with that child? Well, the first step is helping them reflect and understand that that's not okay behavior. And then the second step is repeated behaviors, working with the parents to see what's happening. There could be things that are happening at home. There could be mental health challenges. There could be special ed challenges. That's when we do more assessments and we be able to do this progressive level of support through those tiers. So as students and parents that may be the victim, we want to make sure we hear you, we support you, we care for you and restore you having been damaged, but we're also working with that child. And then at some places, especially with our older adults, we do something more of a restorative practices. That if the victim wants to be able to meet with a student that's truly sorry for what they did, then we can bring them together and we can facilitate a restorative process. But we don't always do that. We don't want the victim to be in a place where they're re-traumatized or they're having struggles. But a lot of the work we're doing is behind the scenes through our partners and through our staff at the school districts. I just wanted to highlight more because I saw those 2 questions in the chat.
And
Go ahead, Stacy.
I was
And
just gonna add that we do, PBIS and our tier 1 work with student relationships is, what we're trying to promote, but we also have a progressive discipline policy. And if students have repeated behaviors, we always come from a place of support, but there's also gonna be assurances and things put in place to try to make sure that behavior isn't continuing to hurt other students or create an unsafe environment for them. So I always tell parents, like, if something's happening, make sure you're letting administration know. They can work with yard supervisors in specific areas or go out themselves and kind of take a look at what's going on. And I know as a principal, I was out at every lunch, nutrition, before school, after school, and that's where I saw the students and I really got to see their social skills and how they needed help, whether it was using please and thank you, or including kids in a basketball game, or not calling somebody a name. I always say my best work was done at lunch out in the play area, because that's where the kids typically struggle the most with peer relationships. So there is a disciplinary side, but we always come from a restorative place because we're working with children and children make mistakes and they need to be taught what's acceptable and what's expected, and how to be a wonderful human being in this world. So that's what we're trying to do. It's a big task, but we have a lot of great kids out there and a lot of great parents and community support.
And we just received another question on this topic, and I actually don't know this. This is one, Taylor. I don't know if FSA has done parent workshops, and I'm going to paraphrase it, is like, how do you talk to your teen so they listen? Do you do parenting? And then I know, Charlene, if you want to jump, PTA has been looking for different parent forums in the past. COVID has kind of shifted that, but PTA is always looking for different types of parent workshops. And so that might be something if we might be able to partner with on the future. Is like, how do you have those conversations with your child, especially teenagers? How do we relate and connect to our teenagers? Taylor, have you all done parent workshops like that?
We have not a specific workshop, but we do have we have a kind of a parenting class or group that has sectioned out for different ages. So some of that is for like preteen to teen. So we can have a group so the parents can have a.
That's a great topic.
I would love to talk to him further about that because I know there are many parents that need that advice. So
I don't know if just me or everyone, but Taylor's frozen on my screen. Okay. So we'll come back to Taylor, but it looks like FSA could partner with us on that to do some. Oh, I just committed to you just something, Taylor, because you were frozen. Now you look like you're in shock. Sorry. Okay, are you there?
Back.
Okay, it just everything shut me down for a second. That was crazy. I don't know what anyone heard because I was talking and I realized I was frozen.
I committed you to partnering with PTA to do a potential workshop, but you said that you may have. You were talking about what you've done in the past.
Yeah, we have a parenting group class, which is I don't like the name so much. It's more of a parenting group, especially for either younger kids or older adolescents that anyone can call in about. And that what I was asking before I dropped off the face of the earth was if I could maybe put a family services agency's number in the chat. So if anyone wanted to call for that resource and have more and get some more information, they're more than welcome to do so.
That would be great too. If you put it in the chat and if Wendy could post it in the Q&A, that'd be great.
Sure. Okay, I'll do that.
Okay. All right, our second segment that we wanted to highlight today, and again, please keep putting questions in the Q&A. We want to make this as interactive as possible. But the second is really around planning. We have a safe school plan, what each school site develops our safe school plans. And we encourage all parents, all staff members to be part of that safety committee and the safety planning process. Stacy's gonna go into more detail about that. Also what we do with safety walks, as well as our partnership with BPD, especially our SROs are here today. And I'll invite them after Stacy goes to be able to talk about their work as well. But Stacy, can you give a little more information about the planning that we do in place to make sure that our schools are safe?
Yes, so we have a safe school plan for every school site, and it's a living, breathing document. So while it's a very long document and it outlines emergency preparation for earthquakes, threats, wildfires, what do we do if we have to evacuate? How do we handle a lockdown? How do we make sure we're doing everything we can with student drop off and pickup, and just all things safety are in that plan. And it evolves. It evolves as our needs change. And I work with the principals and assistant principals a lot on really looking at it as an evolving document, and that you don't wait for a year when you're redoing your safety plan to address concerns. That as you walk around campus or as you practice a fire drill or a lockdown drill, that we continue to try to improve, get better, learn new research. And our partnership with Burbank Police and Fire is really an integral part of that process, because they really bring in different perspectives. They can share changes in law. We also partner with the County Office of Education and a lot of different organizations to try to keep our schools as safe and rich as far as learning environment as possible. So I think, we work very hard at that. We take it very seriously. Dustin and Kumi and I and our facilities folks and principals have been walking sites and identifying physical safety things and egress, and does that gate lock correctly, and all kinds of things that we spot, making sure our communications, our fire equipment, our communication systems like the Bogan are working. So we invest a lot of time into it, and we actually go to the school sites and walk campuses. Often we have parents or other committee members join us. And so we take it really seriously, and we talk to the students too, and we get their input. So the Safe School Plan is an ongoing thing. It's every year that we redo it, but it's a constant awareness of your site, your students, your community, and how to make sure we're all safe. The other thing, I know that there's going to be probably tonight, so I was just going to mention that, the issues with opioids and fentanyl are obviously in the news right now, and the tragic death of a student in LAUSD. And it's something that our health services staff has been addressing for quite some time. We already have board policy in place. We are working with LACO to secure Narcan and have training so that we, in the event that we have an issue with opioid overdose, that we're ready to help the student and obviously call 911. And Matt and I were talking about having another parent event to share information about that in the future. But I just wanted the community to know that BPD has given us training in the past. They have protocols in place. But there is a lot of concern about it, and we will be sending out resources and information for parents because even today in our district safety committee meeting, people were like, wait, what's going on with this? And they wanted more information. So we'll be getting that out. We do have a district safety committee meeting as well, and it's representatives from all different areas of the district, principals, custodians, office managers, parents are welcome. And we go over the broader safety concerns as a district and what we need to work on. And it's a really great committed meeting. Many of the members have been on that committee for several years, and I really appreciate their support and dedication as well. I think that our SROs wanted to share we've been doing a tremendous amount of work around threat assessment and prevention was in the area of school violence. And we've been working on this since 2019. We were working on it before, but we really got into it after the Saugus incident. So I think Dustin and Kiyomi wanted to share about that.
Good evening. Like I said, I'm Detective Rodriguez. And so just to give you a little background, I have 2 children myself. My son's a senior in high school, and my daughter just graduated a couple years ago. And so as a parent, I've been through several school threats at their school. And so I've had the concerns for my own children. And so I've taken that experience and I've incorporated into this position as we develop this threat assessment model. And I think it's really important. And since 2019, we've actually seen a lot of success in this model. And so a quick overview, what it looks like is level 1 is all the teachers and coaches, the aides, anybody that works with a student at a site. That eventually will include parents and children and students. And they're the eyes and ears. We are incorporating PBIS, which holds a lot of the qualities that we're looking for in a safe school climate. That way they feel confident and they feel like they can report. If they see something, they observe something, they know who to talk to and report it. And part of that is building positive relationships, just like we mentioned earlier with PBIS. As SROs, our job is not to bust kids. That's really lame, to be honest. I would never do that. Our job is to build positive relationships with students and staff and parents in any capacity, whether a lot of students actually invite us to their sporting events, or they want us to come, and watch musical chairs during lunch or go to the clubs, and we're more than willing to meet them where they're at. And it's really important to us that we have that positive relationship. In fact, today we went to get some coffee after school at Starbucks, and a large group of kids wanted stickers. And hey, how's it going? And so we've had those positive interactions even outside of school. And it's important that that level 1 training, which we're in the middle of with all the school sites, really takes hold. So that way, when there is a concerning behavior, they feel comfortable and confident that what they're reporting is going to get taken care of. So if we do receive a threat, the protocol is standardized now. It's not, no one decides right off the bat if it's credible, not credible. What we do is we look at the information we have, and it gets reported directly to an on-site threat assessment team. That team is made up of school administrators at the site, the school psychologist, a counselor. It's going to be SROs, our MET team, our mental health team from the Burbank PD. And essentially what we do is I get notified immediately. There's no hesitation in notifying myself or Officer Roberts, and that's high priority. We will drop whatever we're doing and respond to a threat. Whether it's social media or someone says something during class or nutrition. From there, we gather information. We see what kind of evidence we have, and then we're able to formulate an intervention plan. Based on that, we can see if it's credible, not credible. And typically that's a pretty quick process, especially at this point. And so if there's intervention, when intervention is needed, whether we speak to the students right then and there, or if they're at home, wherever they're at, there's going to be some kind of contact. We'll follow up as the police department. Sometimes we send our mental health team out, depending on the situation. And so we take serious every threat. And if there's not credibility to what their statement is, then we take appropriate action and there's an appropriate response. So once we have that threat and we put the intervention plan in place for that day, it goes to an oversight committee, which we meet about once a month, and we review these cases to ensure that the students are getting their resources and their needs met. And a lot of this stuff is very confidential, and so we're not able to share all the details. But we look at, if there's any educational needs, in school needs as far as mental health that we can provide, maybe with FSA, and then also outside of school, in the home, we can provide resources with the LA County Mental Health START team. They'll be able to provide resources to the family and the student that made the threat. And also the victims, if there's a victim of a given threat, we also want to take care of them also. And so we take these very seriously. We treat every student as if they're our own child, and we want to make sure that we're doing everything we can to ensure that we vet these threats thoroughly every time. And so, is there anything else, Stacy, you want me to mention? I mean, so far, like I said, this threat assessment model has been working really well. And so, it's still evolving, and if there's suggestions, things like that, we're open to it. Because at the end of the day, it's about supporting students, and so making sure that staff feel safe, students feel safe, and parents feel comfortable having their kids come to school. And that's, as a parent, that's what I want, and that's what I want to know is PD involved immediately, and what is the school doing? And this model, for me, I feel comfortable with it.
Yeah, I'm very proud of the work we're doing, and I think we're doing more trainings and more intensive work than we've ever done before. And I'm very proud of the fact that students who have been in these positions of making threats or struggling, when we get the right supports in place and the help, then they're thriving, and that's really exciting. The other thing, we need the community's help when we do have threats, because we understand the instinct as a parent, and I'm a parent too, is to, mama bear, my kid has to be safe and I'm scared, and, but it's really important that, for example, a parent doesn't repost a social media threat. We've had that happen. What that does is it panics the community, and then all of our phones melt because we get so much communication, and it makes doing our job and actually handling the threat much more difficult. The police department gets inundated with calls, we get inundated. So if you see something, report it to an administrator, report it to district staff. We have a We Tip hotline, we have a Stop Bullying email, and that's the appropriate method for getting help or getting something to our attention. Social media does not help. It just makes it 100 times worse, and it makes it hard for us to do our jobs. So I just want to put that out there. And we've had a lot of questions about what happens when we receive a threat, and then the communications that go out to the community. The first call we make is law enforcement, and typically Dustin or district staff or myself are at that site in minutes if they're not already there, and we're notifying other law enforcement, and we are making sure that site has a lot of presence and support from law enforcement and the district as we vet that threat and make sure there's no concern. And then we notify parents as soon as possible. So we definitely have protocols in place, and it's unfortunately, these threats are a reality. Social media is a thorn in our side always, creates a lot of work for us, but I think our process and our partnership is really working well, and we are doing everything we can. So.
Thank you, Stacy and Dustin. I see a couple questions that came up in the Q&A. One is to have principals share information more widely, emergency plans, earthquakes, etc. We put in the chat, it is on each school site website, the school safety plan. We also have the district website that has all the safety plans, so we put the master link there. We encourage everyone to, if there's a possibility of joining your school site council, it's an elected position, but please get informed about your school site council. But when they're reviewing the safety plans, there's assessments that they do. So contact your principal. They always want volunteers to help do those assessments. They always want feedback on how to improve the safety plan. So you can do that throughout the school year, but there's also a formalized meeting that's reviewed at the school site council meeting to approve the safety plan. So get involved. That's where you'll find the information, but you can always send your principal a question about the safety plans or see if there's opportunities to volunteer. The second was around the bell. Our childcare providers, do they have safety plans? The law is focused on K-12 schools, but over the years we've been enhancing. So the adult school now has a safety plan, and Stacy and the student services team are working with Stephanie Fields, who oversees our childcare division, to work through their safety protocols. So making sure they have emergency backpack and bins is something we're focused on. We're looking at their plans and additional training this year as well. So we want to make sure all of our students are protected. It's not the formalized plan that you have for the TK through 12 schools, but we want to make sure that they do have plans and protocols in place. Stacey, I know we received a question ahead of time about peepholes in classroom doors as far as preparedness and readiness. Can you share a little bit what we've talked with BPD about pros and cons of doing that?
Yeah, I mean, we had a conversation about it, and our guidance, Dustin can probably speak better than I can, but he's been trained in Secret Service, Department of Justice, and those, the research we've heard is that in a lockdown situation, you don't want somebody peering out windows or out the classroom doors or drawing any kind of attention to themselves. So Dustin or Adam, or Kiyomi, I don't know if you guys want to jump in on that.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. If it comes to an actual incident on campus and we have a hard lockdown and the students are in part of the run, hide, fight protocol and they're in the hide, I don't feel comfortable. I don't think it's a great idea for someone to try to look through a peephole down the hall. We want to protect as many lives as we can. And so what our response is, obviously, if there's a major incident, we're going to be going and neutralizing the threat immediately. And then there's going to be a systematic going to each classroom and addressing that classroom and helping students and staff get out. And so at that point, I know that the sites, part of our training is getting the sites on a Remind app so that we can have the principals and admin communicate with all staff about what's going to be happening. If we go to a classroom, we'll have a key, things like that. So I don't think a peephole is, initially it sounds like a good idea. I just don't agree with it. I think that it's one of those things that we need to not have anything like that so we can respond the way we do as a department. So.
Yeah, if I can weigh in a little bit. If the school's in lockdown and the students are in a locked classroom, stay locked down. We're going to bypass locked doors to move to wherever the threat is. We will come back and be cleaning up the locked classrooms as we go once we have the threat addressed. So stay locked down, stay away from the doors and windows. We will come, we will announce ourselves very clearly. We will open that door. I'm not going to ask a teacher or a student to go to the door, look through a peephole and try and vet out whether that's really the police on the other side of the door. Stay locked down. We're going to come to you. Is the bottom line.
Thank you. And that's going to be a transition into the last segment that we want to cover tonight is the response. And Adam talked about lockdown, and just want to reiterate what Stacy said, because we get a lot of questions from parents of, we usually send out a communication that says, okay, there's a situation, we're working with BPD. And at this time, it's not a credible threat. We will update you. And parents are like, should I pick up my child right now? What's going on? I want more information. We're in the middle of doing that assessment. I just want to assure everybody that if there's any sign of danger or harm to students or staff, we're going into lockdown immediately. And you will be notified that the school is in a lockdown. And we're going to ask you to stay home. I know people first urge as a parent is I want to go pick up my child. We're in the middle of a situation. It's lockdown. We want to let you know that we're on top of it, working on it. If we don't say lockdown, we don't see it's a credible threat, but we're going to keep doing our investigation and our due diligence. That's why you don't get a lot of information in that early phase, because we don't see anything that we have to be we're alarmed about. Lockdown's the next one. When it's an all clear, it's time to pick up students, then you pick up directions from us. So there's 3 phases of communication. And I know parents, when they get the first one, like, is it lockdown? Is it something I need to run and get to the school? We will let you know if it's going to lockdown, or that 3rd phase, it's safe that we need you to pick up your child at school. And those are the 3 phases. And I just wanted Captain Cornelius to talk more about how lucky we are in Burbank, and the training and the equipment and all the procedures that the Burbank Police Department has put in place that makes us different than some other cities where we talked about Uvalde and how they had a tragic mishap on multiple levels. Burbank's different. And I was going to allow Captain Cornelius to talk through what BPD does to get ready for that terrible incident if it ever did happen.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Hill. Again, my name's Adam. I'm basically going to be doing a light presentation of the discussion we had with City Council and the school board in this summer. I was asked if I would share a PowerPoint. Adam is not a tech guy, so I'm calling it a win that I got logged in here and everybody can see and hear me. And I'm not going to push my luck and try and put something on the screen that's going to crash everything. So I'm just going to freewheel and talk. Again, when I introduce myself, I'm the captain for the patrol division. So I oversee the very visible side of the operation. Everybody in a car, everybody in a motorcycle wearing a uniform that you see. We are 24/7, weekends, nights, holidays, we never close. We're running proactive patrols and responding to calls for service day and night all over town. So our folks are going to be the most likely first responders to any emergency incident anywhere in the city, including the schools, unless Dustin or Kiyomi happen to be on campus. One of my priorities for the folks in patrol is that they are familiar with the locations in their beat before we go to an emergency. So we have our officers assigned to specific areas of the city. And the very first thing when the school year opens up is I have the officers go out, they meet the staff, meet the principal, introduce themselves face to face at every school in their beat. When the opportunity presents, they take a walkthrough to get familiar so that they have been on campus and seen it before we have the emergency, before they have to go to a critical incident. Day to day, school checks in their beat is an expectation that every day that they're checking the schools in their beats. Beyond that, we also do specific area checks or extra patrols based on requests or based on events that may have occurred where we need to have an extra presence there. So I want to talk a little bit about some of the preparation work we do as far as equipment and training and just response protocols. Speaking about equipment, one of the things we have is we have site plans. We have digital site plans for every school, every facility in BUSD that lives in our computer network. So it is a click away for our dispatchers, for my watch commanders, for the supervisors and officers out in the field on the computers in their cars. It can be downloaded to their phones so that we can orient ourselves to what's going on campus. When somebody is on 911 saying, I'm in building 2, room 23, we can have a very clear picture of where that person is related to where the incident may be occurring, and we can move more effectively. We have keys and access to keys for the facilities at the schools. Absent that, we also have entry tools in our patrol cars. So I'm talking about things that are going to allow us to force entry through a door, force entry through a window, to cut through a lock or chain and get us into a location that we may not have a key for. We also have medical kits in the event of a tragic incident. It's a standard issue for every officer to have a trauma kit and a tourniquet. These are for treating traumatic injuries. These aren't first aid kits. These are for treating serious injuries We're talking about knife wounds, gunshot wounds, major collision injuries. We've had a lot of success with these in various incidents around the city. We also have larger response kits with more equipment in our patrol vehicles. And then Dustin took the lead on pre-staging larger kits of these medical supplies at several of the schools in the city. The idea being not that we're going to have the teachers start trying to go to work on treating somebody with a gunshot wound, but then when we are there and we've been trained in using this equipment, once we have the situation stabilized, we can go to work on saving people's lives right away and not have to wait to bring the fire department in. To piggyback on something Stacy had talked about with the opioid issue, it's kind of a sidebar, but we also carry Narcan in the field. All of our officers carry Narcan. We've deployed it multiple times. It's very effective, and it's a critical piece of kit for us in the life-saving mission. So talk some about training. I'm a big believer in training. Our chief is a big believer in training. Every year when the school year starts, we have an annual meeting with Dr. Hill and his command staff, his principals and his staff. We exchange direct contact information. We talk about response protocols, address any concerns that there may be. And the big win for that in us is, again, is that face-to-face interaction and exchanging the contact information. So now when there's a concern, Stacy can call Adam. She doesn't have to try and navigate the bureaucracy of the police department to get to Captain Cornils, and vice versa. So I can annoy her too. But we also do ongoing presentations to school district staff. Sometimes these are district-wide meetings. Sometimes these are at specific school sites. These include threat assessment training that Detective Rodriguez and now Officer Roberts are going to be doing. I also have our members of the SWAT team go out and do basically some training conversations and presentations with individual school staff so that they're talking about preparation, response. We're not dictating policy and procedures to the school district, but we're having the conversation to work through what may be some of the speed bumps and some of the issues if we do have an incident come up, so that we've worked through that ahead of time. I'm also a big believer in us training on site. We've been very fortunate to have a very good relationship with the school district, and they let us optimize on the times when they're not on campus. So summer break, winter break, we are on the school campuses around the city doing training. That's some of our department-wide training we do there. I have the SWAT team out there training on a regular basis. And then it's not just us. We bring the fire department with us. We bring our mutual aid partners from other law enforcement agencies in the area with us, so that, again, we get that on the ground look and that on the ground perspective at the schools before we have to respond there. Training for us is it's comprehensive, it's ongoing, it never stops. You're never going to see me come to you and say, it's September 23rd, 2022, and we did it. We've achieved everything. We're fully trained, and now we can stop and just go on about our way. It never stops. It's an ongoing active shooter response, especially as an ongoing training topic for us in our patrol roll calls. We're doing tabletop exercises, debriefs. It's something that we're constantly refreshing. It's constantly being gone over. So to discuss a couple specifics we did this summer, we were very fortunate that we had access to John Burroughs High School and McKinley Elementary. We got to hold some active shooter training exercises there. I started off with at John Burroughs, and I wanted to start off with what I call a blind response exercise, where I put my SWAT team out there. They set up training sites with role players and training equipment. I didn't tell our patrol staff what we were going to be doing. And then we just put in the calls to dispatch, said, send me 2 cars, send me 3 cars, sometimes send me 1 car, and have them meet the SWAT team at this location. The officers showed up, they weren't told what they were going to be doing. They had to get into training gear, and they were given the scenario and sent in to go address the active shooter incident. I was very happy with what I saw there. There's always going to be fine tuning of some tactics or procedures, but what I was really looking for was the mindset. You're going to hear me talk about mindset again in a minute. Nobody hesitated. Nobody slowed down. Nobody paused. Everybody went to move to the threat and to stop the threat, and then to start treating the wounded. And that's what I wanted to see. So we piggybacked on that with a couple days of directed training department-wide. Every sworn officer went through it at McKinley Elementary, where we did some advanced training on active shooter response. Again, we brought the fire department with us so that we could work together with them and work on some of the command and control and some of the cooperative issues that we need to address there. So that's an ongoing process. And next summer, next spring break, I'm going to be pestering Dr. Hill or some of his staff for another campus to use, because I want us to keep going to different locations and not get static. So the final thing I want to talk about is mindset and some differences here in Burbank versus some other incidents you may have seen in the country. Dr. Hill referenced Uvalde. And the bottom line is, I hate throwing rocks from 1,300 miles away, and I don't know every fact of what happened there in Uvalde. But the bottom line is, we failed. Law enforcement failed there. And that has created concerns. It's created some doubts. It's created some fears. It drives some conversation, which is some important conversation to have. I welcome having this conversation because I want to talk to people in the community about this and address those concerns proactively. You know, we can look at this and say, okay, well, what does that have to do with Burbank? We're 1,300 miles away. And the fact for me is, people don't see that, they just see the police. They see the police and they wear the uniform. And so the issue there touches us here also. You can talk about equipment. Our officers are well equipped. By everything I've seen in the videos, the officers there had modern equipment. They were equipped to do the job. I've talked about training. I've talked about what we do. From what I hear, they have a contemporary training program there also. Where you see the difference is in mindset. I've been a police officer for 24 years in LA County. I've had the opportunity to travel all over the country to do training. This includes rural areas in the South and in Texas, not Uvalde. But what I'm going to tell you is there is a very different mindset in small rural agencies compared to a metropolitan area in LA County. The expectations, the operational tempo is very different. It's typically very slow. The expectations of proactive work, the expectations of taking charge, of having to respond to these kind of incidents on a more regular basis is much lower. You don't have the same experience level there. And I can't speak to what the experience level is in that area, but I'm going to hazard a guess that you could do a 20-year career in a 6-person school district police department there, rise to the rank of chief, and never have handled a critical incident beyond maybe a domestic violence or a serious traffic accident. So then when you get an incident like the Uvalde shooting dropped in your lap, it's going to take a very strong personality, strong leadership skills to get that incident resolved, and that didn't happen. The difference here is expectations. The community expects a much more proactive police department, and that's what we deliver. We are running to field emergencies every day. We are managing critical incidents on a regular basis. And so that creates a mindset of proactively responding, proactively taking charge of things that carries through, and that carries us forward when we have those critical incidents. It's beyond just the equipment and the training. It's up here. You know, if we had an incident like this happen, it's going to be a bad day. There is no good outcome to an active shooter incident. But what I want to assure everybody is that if you were to unplug the Uvalde incident, drop it into Burbank tomorrow, you're going to see a very different response, a very different outcome. We're going to be absolutely relentless in doing whatever it takes to stop the person who is murdering children. And that's the bottom line. My wife tells me that sometimes I come off a little intense when I talk about this topic. Maybe I set the tone a little severely, but I'm okay with that because this is what I expect. It's what I expect of the officers who work for me. It's what I expect of the officers who work where I live and where my son goes to school. And it's what you should expect from us. Nothing less. So I'm happy to have this conversation and get this information out there, and I'll be happy to field any questions.
Thank you so much, Adam, and thank you to the chief and the entire Burbank Police Department. We are fortunate to have a committed and dedicated police department supporting our schools here in Burbank. Just one last reminder as we go to conclusion, if you want to submit questions now, please use the Q&A function. I see there's one question there, so we want to get questions there. And I love that, Adam, if you haven't seen this, you're the best, Adam. You're an intense, but that is reassuring, and I will echo that. We want all of our police officers to be compassionate, but serious in protecting the lives of our students and our staff, so thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
So there's a question about a fire drill at one of our schools today.
I can probably address that. I'll check in with the admin there, but I think there's maybe a misunderstanding because when I was principal there, students line up for the fire drill. They meet their class outside in their first period. So they go to their first period teacher outside for accounting and attendance purposes, but they don't go to their first period when there's a fire drill. A lockdown drill, they might go to a specific class. Typically, the direction is to go to the nearest building or nearest classroom. So I'm thinking that there may be some miscommunication, misunderstanding, but I can double check with the principal there tomorrow.
We will follow up.
Yeah.
Okay.
If I can just step in there, I was told it was a lockdown drill, not a fire drill. So I don't know if that's probably the miscommunication.
Okay.
Yeah, probably, because they're very different. They're kind of opposite in what the kids are instructed to do. So.
Yeah. So for a lockdown, they're practicing that protocol in the classroom. So, okay. Let's see. There's a question about who do we check with on the status of ATB state safety plan. Just again, for clarification, ATB isn't required to have a safety plan, but they're working with student services on safety procedures and protocols. So you can reach out to Stephanie Fields, who's the head of ATB, and if there's questions, she'll coordinate with Stacy Cashman and student services.
And our timeline for those plans is December, but it's for the following year. So we are working on those over the next few months. It's like I said, it's ongoing, just like Adam was talking about. We're never done with our safe school plans. It's a living, breathing document.
Again, I want to thank Burbank Council PTA for hosting this event this evening. They approached us and they were hearing from parents that wanted more information. So thank you, Charlene, Wendy, and Lori for bringing this and partnering with us as always. I want to thank Burbank Police Department, as well as Burbank Family Service Agency, Student Services, Stacy Cashman, Lauren, our translators. Thank you, Nuria and Anna. This is just one conversation we want to have recorded and available for the community. Dustin and Kiyomi, thank you as well. Sorry, I missed you when I was going through. Thank yous. It's just amazing. Hopefully you get that energy and that vibe and that partnership that we have. I thank everyone for the panel tonight, but more importantly, just that partnership that we live day in and day out. And it is 24/7. All of us have at some point in time been texting or communicating at all hours to make sure that our students and our staff are safe. So again, I want to thank everyone for participating and watching. We will post this on our website so it's accessible if people want to follow up, but please reach out to your school site. Learn about the safety plans. You'll find it on their websites or the district website. See ways to volunteer, ask questions. As we talked about throughout tonight, step one is making sure that we are making those connections between students and adults on our campus, inside and outside of school. Step two is proactive training and reassessment and planning. And three is making sure we're ready for an incident when that happens. But this is living and breathing constantly. We need to make sure that we keep partnering with our parents and our community to get feedback and refining our practices. But thank you all for taking time out of your evening to be with us tonight. And I wish you all a safe and healthy night. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.
All right.